Hey, it's Max. So, this speed paint is for my little brother who has been very patient for this piece. It is inspired by the game Cave Story. The scene takes place after a boss fight where um, the two main characters are sort of at this moment of crisis, and one of them, um, more or less, I mean, spoilers. It's an old game. Um, but pretty much puts herself in danger to save the other main character. So it's Curly and Quote from Cave Story after fighting the ancient core and this whole area. Um, it's a very, very interesting game. It's very moody. A lot of really great environments. So I wanted to capture some of that, this area. It's dilapidated. There's a sense of, I don't know, like an environmental violence almost. The creature that you fight in this area turns out to be um, kind of like the heart of the island that the game takes place on. It takes place on this floating island, and um, this creature apparently kept it floating and running. And then this whole area floods with water, so it's a very emotional part of the game. Sort of like, oh no, what have I done? Um, so earlier we see me putting in a couple like sketches of how I want to lay out the environment. Here's another sketch coming in. Just I just wanted to try a couple different angles. I had attempted this piece before, and I was never really able to capture the sort of scale and sense of light that I wanted to, but I think that this one actually turns out very nice, a lot better than my earlier attempts. I have a lot more practice under my belt. So I start off very painterly, and then I go in with a selection tool and turn these into flat colors so that I can establish all of my shapes. At some point, I actually switch away from my soft round brush to a harder, coarser brush so that I can get in these shapes. And I think that it's a very nice result. Ironically enough, using a soft brush, as it turns out, it can have very soft transitions in a form, but it leads to a lot of indecision, and I needed to really work on my edges. So this foreground shape here, this is part of the ancient core. It's sort of like this. They kind of look like seed pods. I'm not really sure how to describe them. I'll put up a reference images and all of that so that you know what you're looking at. But I wanted these sort of folds. So it starts out very purple, and then I just make a selection, and I use it's like a filter setting. So I just make a selection of my painting and then change the hue. So I shift it all more towards green. But the environment is very purple. It's very cool, so it doesn't need to be that green. I think this cyan is plenty. Certainly helps with all the moody lighting as well. So part of this piece that was very enjoyable was starting with the sort of monochromatic, just these shades of purple, um, and then coming in with a secondary color, and then eventually a tertiary color. So here I'm working on the figures. Quote has collapsed after this difficult fight. And these two main characters, they're robots, and if the whole area has flooded, then we all know what happens when you drop your phone into the sink, or I don't know. When you're doing dishes, you knock your phone over, and you're like, oh no. So trying to figure out a few things spatially. I think that I really like this composition. I'm very happy with the placement of all my shapes. So I've got the main purple, and then I've got this sort of tealish green, and then our protagonists wear red. So again, I didn't want to go so very red. I wanted to keep the colors very delicate. I really got in the weeds on this one. I don't even know if you can see it in the speed paint, but I'm trying to figure out bits of anatomy and clothing folds. But because of the scale of the figures, I don't think that it matters that much. It depends. You know, maybe if you're watching this on your 4K monitor, you might be able to see what's going on. If you're watching on your phone, definitely not. But it was very nice, especially in the clothing, working out all of the folds and where the light's hitting, and the very, very subtle hue shifts. Really focusing more on shapes and edges than anything else in this one. I'm just working in how can I imply the details rather than have to, draw everything in. Working out a little bit of shadow, a little bit of lighting. I wanted the light to sort of be filtering in from up top, and that certainly comes in later. So in the environment that this takes place in the game, there's sort of like some rebar. There's these stone blocks that have been crumbled. So trying to get a little bit of that without getting too distracting or too liney. Just trying to add a little bit of interest to these big blocky forms. But I don't know. I like it. I feel like it really gives the impression. So here I actually took the drawing or the painting, did an adjustment, did a tone curve, and then erased away. So I copied the painting, did my tone curve, and then erased away to get some highlights, and then an overlay layer, and then I needed some bubbles, some specularity, some particles to sell the underwater feeling. So I work on that a bit, and gosh, yeah, I think this turned out nice. It's very moody. Cave Story is a great game. Everyone should play it. It's so cool. It's very charming and not crazy hard. Parts of it, certain parts of it, optional parts, very hard, but it's so enjoyable. Lovely story. I don't know what happens here. I move my canvas. I move it back. There's like a key that I press that does that. So anyway, here's our finished piece. Thank you so much. Leave a like and let me know what I should paint next. See you next time. Bye.